Nauliza all the government, shirika zote za serikali kama KRA, na wauliza kwa heshima, as you do changes and especially increasing duty like the one we saw recently, it is important to do public participation.
Hata kama hiyo sheria ilipita, hiyo point moja ambayo inaguza primary produce of the farmer, hiyo bwana makamu wa rais, hiyo uangalie vizuri na macho mawili.
We know there is a challenge with the Finance Act. You cannot make the farmers unable to produce.
The finance bill is a very big document, and within the shortest time possible, you cannot expect a member of parliament who is so busy to have gone even to the nitty-gritties inside to know what is contained in everything.
23 senators, tukiongozwa na Okia Omutata, tunaenda kotini kupinga sheria mbaya za Ruto.
We have been told of the success of the subsidized fertilizer. But what we have not been told, that part of that subsidized fertilizer was a donation from Russia. So there's been lack of full disclosure.
Indeed.
And that up to now has not been revealed. How much was received from Russia? Who are the beneficiaries?
We have to caution our fellow citizens against the excesses of this Kenya Kwanza regime.
The cry is the same. Taxation, over taxation.
Yani ni mupende musipende kind of mentality.
People are talking about one name and one name only, Zakayo, and his punitive taxes. That is a common cry across this country.
I have no problem being called whatever name, so long as I achieve a better destiny for our country.
Hii fertilizer tulinunua tukakuta iko na ile dropping ya mavi ya mbuzi. Alafu kunuka inanuka mavi ya mbuzi. Gunia ndani unakuta haina ile lining ya karatasi ya nylon ile inazuiaga fertilizer ili isishikwe na maji ama isiharibike.
Tumepigwa na mshangao kwa sababu kile tumepata sio kile tulitarajia. Mlituahidi ya kwamba wakulima watafaidika kutokana na mipango ya serikali. Lakini mipango tunaiona saa hii sioni kama ni mipango ambayo inaweza weka mkulima motisha wa kuendelea kufanya kazi.
Kuna kitu inaitangwa kwa kizungu disaster ama calamity. Hii ni calamity. Kuangalia ati fertilizer tunaitoa kwa makumbi ya serikali. Kumaanisha kabla ingia kwa hizo stores za serikali lazima kungekuwa na mtu wa kudhibitisha hii fertilizer ni fertilizer halali, fertilizer mzuri, fertilizer yenye inafaa.
Kama wakati huu hatujapanda na mvua inaendelea kunyesha, tutafanya nini? Na tutakuwa na njaa tu.
Serikali inajaribu kupambana na wakora wale wanataka kuwalagai wa Kenya na pia kujaribu kuwaletea kama kuwauzia mbegu mbaya.
Because you are the only one who basically comes from the ground here. Na umesema fertilizer ni mbaya. Before I leave, please give me receipts ya wale ambao wamepata fertilizer mbaya, and I will ensure the compensation is done before I leave here.
Wewe huwezi kutuuzia fertilizer ovyo alafu kuje kutuambia tusiulize kwa niaba ya wananchi. Na ukiangalia vizuri, ukichunguza, kama Rita angekuwa hapa afanye expose, ungekuta hii fertilizer iliingizwa na Talamu. Anatuambia hapa ati tusiulize hii maswali.
Saa hii we have a responsible government. We have greater responsibility than anyone else to ensure that wakulima wetu get the right quality fertilizer, because issues of food security is our business as government. Kwa hivyo wale wakora wa Azimio ile ingine kazi yao wajui mambo ingine ni kusema kila kitu serikali inafanya ni kibaya, wataneni na hao.
There is no single clause in the Finance Act of 2023 that introduces taxes to our farmers. Kwa hivyo kama mnataka porojo ya kuchochea wananchi, tafuta ingine. Lakini hakuna any tax. Hiyo sijui mnaita avocado tax. There is no any taxation that was introduced in the Finance Act targeting our farmers.
Ile fertilizer kwa NCCB ambayo imeandikwa ni subsidized fertilizer, hiyo ni fertilizer that have been approved by KEBS. Ile ingine ya wakora, hiyo imewekwa kando and investigation is being done.
Tunataka kuwakanya kwamba hii serikali iko imara. Wale wote ambao wamekuwa busy wakiunda mbolea gushi,
proper investigation be done. Wajumbe ambao wako kamati ya agriculture, wajumbe ambao wako kamati nyingine, wachunguze mpaka washike wale watu ambao wamehusika na hiyo mambo ya mbolea duni.
Neno ya mbolea fake tunajua kwamba sio serikali yetu, ila ni wale economic supporters, and we want to ask our government to take decisive action against them so that we protect our farmers, the farmers who have decided to champion our food security and ensure that Kenya shall be self-reliant.
ISCC wafanye proper investigation, wakamata hiyo watu ambao wanauza mbolea duni.
Anyone who is selling fertilizer in Tharaka Nithi County must register with our Ministry of Agriculture in the county for us to inspect the fertilizer and verify that it is the best quality for our people.
Wakulima wetu wamepata mbolea ambao ni mjanga, sio mbolea. Na hatujui serikali yetu tukufu itasema nini juu ya wakulima wetu.
It is just promises and promises, and we have a cabinet secretary that takes health to be a political field. Health is a very critical department, and as a minister, we don't expect the CS Nakumincha to talk the way she talks. It's the posting of the interns as per the CBA of 2017-2021 that we agreed. It's outlined how they need to be employed, the days they need to take, it has taken March, and what they need to be paid.
Tunataka kuambia serikali ilianza kuguza madaktari kichwa. This is by now eating into our pay slips through removing the housing levy. And they reduced our salaries by 2.5% of something called shift.
This team will take its rightful place to ensure that the interests of Kenyans very objectively are fought for, not limited to holding rallies to discuss the plight and the issues affecting Kenyans, not limited to calling for maandamanos, regional maandamanos in every county, in every constituency, in every ward. And these maandamanos will better be imagined than experienced.
Lakini this is the ground team. Kwa hivyo tumesema ground team lazima tuongee maneno ambayo iko ground. Kwa hivyo ukituona hapa tukiwa pamoja, we are youthful, independent thinkers, we are the voices of the common wananchi.
Right. What fake fertilizer? It seems the cabinet secretary there, Mithika Linturi, is putting his foot in the mouth, right? Because he's wondering what is a fake fertilizer, as we've heard that editorial cartoon this week. As you can see there, a lot of sentiments coming from the ground regarding this fake fertilizer, and farmers are taking special umbrage with government regarding the fertilizer, and they want compensation, most of them. And this is the current state of play of the Kenyans, even as we are celebrating Easter. We have a Kenyan who is having his, of course, uncles in a ball of chains, and you can see that it's a housing levy, it is the shift levy, it is a fertilizer scandal, it is a tax burden. And he's saying, Father, don't forgive them, for they know what they're doing. Don't forgive them, for they know what they're doing, right? In the spirit of forgiveness during Easter, should we forgive? As it's being put here, of course, by Gams, this is in today's editorial cartoon. But even listening at the soapbox, there's an editorial today, and it's regarding the Mount Kenya tax backlash, wake-up call for MPs. And it reads, Kiharu Member of Parliament, Ndini Nyoro, is the latest leader from Mount Kenya to complain about the heavy tax burden imposed on ordinary citizens by the Kenya Kwanza government. Now, a few days ago, he lamented that the burden is becoming unbearable for Kenyans during the current tough economy. That is nothing but the truth. However, he was among those who supported the Finance Bill 2023, Bill 2023, that has given birth to the current tax nightmare. Now, the National Assembly Budget Committee chair is blaming Kenya Revenue Authority for the high taxation and is urging it to engage the public before introducing new taxes. Speaking about the new import duty that business people are up in arms against, Ndindi said, quote-unquote, as you, that is KRA, do changes, and especially increasing duty like the one we did recently, it is important to do public participation. Now, that sounds like backpressing. The truth is, MPs who ought to have consulted the public and received their note before passing the bill. After such a law is enacted, KRA's work is to do the executive's bidding and go out and collect taxes as long as they are legal. The change of mind by Mount Kenya MPs beside Githunguri MP Gathoni Mushomba, who termed the finance bill punitive, oppressive and scandalous regarding the new taxes that they gleefully approved, is baffling and betrays their casual attitude to the important work given to them by their constituents. Some of them have even confessed that they never read sections of a bill that have now stirred farmers and business people's ire. The public anger that has prompted, I should say, the change of mind should serve as a wake-up call for MPs, all Kenya's MPs, to do what is expected of them. We know that legislators, especially those under Kenya Kwanza, were under pressure from the president to pass the bill. But during such times, it is important that they weigh the repercussions of their actions. They must choose between pleasing the president and annoying their constituents, and vice versa. They must always stand for what their people want. Right, I just want to hear from Martin Ulo. You've heard from the soapbox and of course also from different legislators regarding the finance bill and the truth about taxes. Ndidi Nyoro now speaking from both sides of the mouth. Also, we have the chair of the Parliamentary Finance Committee as well saying there was no such legislation in the Finance Act as well. So what is this special umbrage all about?
You know, Dibal, what amuses me is that this government, as we know, is a shareholding government. And the shareholders either know what is inside the details of their shares or they don't. At some point, they thought that the shares were about positions and cabinet and PSS, and that was nice. Now, the shares are also in how to fund the budget. Now, that's not very nice because some of the proposals that are coming through are hurting. And they're not just hurting the shareholders, they're even hurting those who are not shareholders. So we'd have thought that maybe shareholders will be benefiting as others are hurting. Unfortunately or fortunately, they are hurting as much, and that some of the things the shareholders are committing to are hurting businesses more, are hurting agriculture more. And these are their core backbone, support base. So when Ndindi Nyoro now wakes up and he says what he's saying, there is also something that you need to see. The other day we saw Gachagua beating a retreat on his statements and asking for an apology. Ndindi Nyoro and Gachagua have been at war, but essentially you can see that the ground in Central is hostile. It's unhappy. And the introduction of taxes and the introduction of punitive actions such as the shift the social health, affordable housing, now taxes on farmers and produce and so on, are going deep into the pockets of farmers. And these farmers are not happy. And they are the members of some of these vocal members of the Kenya Kwanza teams, voting bloc, supporters and so on. So we are preparing ourselves for a good revolt on the ground, particularly from Central Kenya. And that's why you see now every MP who has his antennas up retreating. Gachagua is retreating, Ndindi Nyoro is retreating, and we'll see more of that. We've had it on this show that it's not unusual that MPs are voted out, but it will be more percentage voted out of Central than we have seen before. If it's been 60, 70, could be even 90, 95% of the current MPs being swept off. For not being with it, for not understanding the plight of the people, and more importantly, for coming on the screen or on the show and telling us, or rather on the TV, and telling us they are so busy, they don't even know what is in the finance bill. What is this business that you are busy with, which is not legislative, which is not analyzing what is going on in the flow of the House, which is not representing your people's interests, because your people's interests will be hurt by finance bill, will be hurt by punitive taxation. So if you come and tell us you are too busy to read that, then you have prepared yourself for, to be put on the chopping block.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. Let's hear from Professor Ogola.
Yeah. First of all, let me say that The biggest problem that Kenya Kwanza is facing, I would call it as wisdom of fools. You know, there's a time when fools come together.
Wisdom of fools.
Wisdom of fools. Actually, it's in the Solomonic Economics book. When the fools can come together and come out with looking very intelligent. And when the execution comes, you discover actually it was just a wisdom of fools. And why am I trying to say so? Let me just give an example here. The corruption that is taking place, the decision that was being done by a member of parliament, when they're being told, pass this bill, you are part of government. They didn't know who was going to benefit when the bill passes. It was just one person. Like, for example, you heard Eugene Mawala saying that there's only one name called Zakayo. When Zakayo is doing taxes, you don't know whether the taxes are helping or not. And we put a memorandum in parliament by telling the Senate and the MPs are telling them, you're passing this bill, it's going to hurt you. And the reason of fools here is that when they were passing the bills, they were thinking it was going to affect only Kenyans, but not them. And they were wise by passing the bill because they have been given some money in parliament, but they didn't know that even if someone gives you 200,000 shillings, and you are going to read my pay slip every now and then, in the end, you are actually one paying the money which you are paid in total in the end. So that was a wisdom of fool. I can give you a very important example whereby someone was an engineer in charge of water in Embu County in specific. This is a true story. He received a bribe from someone who was supplying chemicals to him so that he can give this water treatment to Embu County. And this chemical was not the right one. And after receiving the money, water was supplied in Embu. That year, I'm sure some of you can have it. It was in the papers. So many people died. One of them was his daughter, who consumed that water and died. So when this wise man, when he was receiving the money, was now lowering his daughter to the grave, he was a fool at that time. But before that, he was very wise. So I even talk about the issue of corruption here. Corruption is a wisdom of fools. If a policeman takes a bribe from a bus that does not have good brakes, and the bus is going down the escarpment in Rift Valley, and his wife was driving the car uphill, and that bus crashes his wife, it's a wisdom of fools. In fact, when we discover that most of the things that look very intelligent are foolish, we will really get rid of all these problems. Look, now Senate is crying for money. The president has made Parliament not giving the money for CDF, so all of them are begging him. And that's why if he says left, they go left. If they say right, they go right. The quality of Parliament has gone down so significantly. And Mheshimiwa Kirwa, during your time, can you just go get into a mirror of that Parliament and check the quality of the bench? And if you walk around, there's something now called Tugege. Tugege here means there are so many people, but the quality of their thinking is so low that the more they are there, the worse the situation. What we need is quality. We have increased members of Parliament, but quantitatively, but not improve the quality of Parliament. Maybe you need just 10 MPs to read that bill and tell you this was wrong this way. But you have 300 people. They could have divided paragraph by paragraph. You read paragraph 1, me I read 2. There's division of labor. You can even talk about saying that these MPs who are in charge of this, for example, this committee, have a team. People can come together and read that bill. You don't have to read all of it. Some people can take parts. They even have no quality. And also my biggest disappointment here is with Kenya, with Azimio. I'm sure Mheshimiwa, you're a member of Azimio, but maybe you can disclose if you're not. Azimio never had a strategy to counter the Finance Act. They were just making noise. Because Azimio never had any single retreat to sit down and just appraise themselves with this bill. They could even get a lawyer who could also come and tell them, members, I've read this bill. These are issues that can affect people. They could get a tax consultant. They could get an economist to appraise them of what was happening here. But instead, they were just, some of them were saying they're not attending. Some of them, me, I'm not voting. Me, I'm not coming. Those are not the way you correct the bill. And of course, again, going to my last submission here is, I have a problem again with the process. And my problem is this. Who wrote this Finance Act? The Finance Act was written in Times Towers, somewhere in the 7th floor, by foreigners who had even no idea of the legal environment. And the process of doing a bill, you have to do a legal, economic scan on the environment before you do a bill. They never knew the economic issues that are going to affect Kenyans when the bill is passed. Because you cannot tell me that you know this is our situation, you dream to collect more money, but you want a miracle to happen in between. In strategy, if you can't control the process, you cannot control the outcome. Was the head of state, parliament, the treasury in charge of the process? But I will tell you no, because I read Professor Njuguna Ndung'u's remarks when he was presenting this Finance Act, actually the budget after the Finance Act was passed. He said the following: I take this time to thank our development partners for, 1, offering us structural adjustment, 2, giving us resources, 3, giving us policy direction. You know, when someone is giving you all that together, it means even the policy direction, what you call the policy, budget statement policy, was written by a foreigner, and then you read. Even this past one, you know, the one for the budget coming this year, I read it. It is foreign to Kenya. It's not a Kenyan budget. And that's why, for us in Linda Jamii, we don't want to cry over Kenya Kwanza.
All right.
We are trying to say that time has come to amend the constitution to recall this parliament back, so that people can know that if you make those decisions, you cannot go again and confess I didn't read. You can be recalled back, because there's no any law in Kenya that gives you a mechanism to recall the parliament in case they are disappointing you in totality. But also, we are going to amend these things to recall the president, deputy president, because they have failed us. We cannot wait for 2027, because Azimio is behaving as if they have another country to go to if we fail. They are trying to say, let us give them their skunk. You see what they did? The first thing they did in parliament is to vet the Ruto's cabinet, isn't it? They said, let us give them their skunk. Now, Finance Act, we give them skunk. Budget, skunk. Everything that has come to parliament, let us give. So they are passing things in parliament to punish the president, but they do not know they are punishing Kenyans, and by extension themselves and their children and their children's children.
Right.
So for me, I find that very responsible.
Right. I'm a bit squeamish when you say that we had foreigners who were perched on the, the upper reaches of the tax towers who crafted this particular bill. Would you care to give any evidence? Or which foreigners are this?
I would
Where
give,
is the evidence?
Well, it's been very clear that the treasury is being run by IMF and World Bank. If you look at the recommendations they are giving, they are very much in them. In fact, even the one who bringing seeds, fertilizer, all these things were part of it. When they say they cannot subsidize consumption, they must subsidize only supply. You know, if you look at the policy, for us, you don't have to, I just look at your policy. If you look at the policy of IMF and World Bank, and you try to look at how Kenya is running vis-a-vis when Kenya was with Kibaki, where we are looking east.
So you look at the parallels.
Yes, and at the same time, some of us are privy because we are economists. We know each other. There are not too many coffee shops in town. You sit and say, by the way, you are the one who wrote that thing.
Thank you.
And the government, they tell you, we have friends there.
Right.
Even you know, in the judiciary, people know everybody.
Thank
we
you.
know each other.
Kiproto, I have issues as well with leaders who will actually look at cameras, blatantly and just lie through their teeth, to Kenyans, that they knew very well what they were doing. And so when the situation really changes on the ground and they want to be politically correct, so they change tune at the end of the day. Why would we elect these leaders come 2027 if the sole purpose of legislative mandate that they should be carrying on the floor of the House is not being executed expeditiously?
Yeah, let us remind ourselves the fact that before a bill is brought to the House, as we've said before, there is a first reading, which is notification to anybody, including members of parliament, that this bill will be coming to the House. And after the first reading, it is referred to a committee, relevant committee, and that committee is able to distill the issues and even invite people who will give their opinion about that particular bill. And it's from there that during the second reading that the chairman of that committee or any member of the committee will be able to report to the House whatever has transpired in the committee stage. And it is an improvement that we thought is going to distill a lot of issues and reduce the time that is going to be used in the chamber for discussion.
And if those processes were utilized, and utilized in a way that each member had a chance to make a contribution, some of these issues should not arise at all. But it is clear that those stages, yes, they might have gone through, but so much in a rush that some of the members of parliament pretend not to have seen that particular flaw that is now in the bill, in the act of parliament that has been ascended by the president. So it worries me that you are too busy to deal with the very issue that we elected you to go and do in parliament. And this therefore means these leaders either don't deserve the positions they have, or they have been compromised at some stage, either by fear of the president, or by emasculation of parliament, or by bribery, because we know some of the members of parliament nowadays, they get bribed to pass things without going through thoroughly. Now, my worry is, yes, the bill, they can change in the next finance bill towards June. Yes, they can change, make some of the changes even currently. You can even amend an act of parliament if they so wish. But what worries me is the quality of service we are giving to Kenyans. And compounding that is the fertilizer fakeness that we are witnessing today. And nobody seems to come out to tell us the truth, whether this fertilizer is really being manufactured here in the country, or is it the imports that they were given from Russia. It worries me not because of the loss of money at the beginning. It is the loss of food security. Because at the end of the day, if you plant your maize with fake fertilizer, you are not likely to gain a lot. And therefore importation is going to take place, or possibly they are preparing us to bring GMOs that they have always talked about. And third and most important, what are we telling our children? That every evening you see the president talking, you see the Minister for Agriculture talking, and nothing is being done. Who is responsible for this? Because you see, when the president makes that pronouncement, it is something heavy. Other officers ought to act. And by now, we should be getting in the media that so-and-so has been arrested. He was the culprit responsible in National Cereals and Produce Board. So-and-so has been arrested or sacked in KEBS, because these labels that were authorizing the fertilizer really either were manufactured illegally, or KEBS gave without authenticating some of those labels to people who supplied soil to National Cereals and Produce Board. It is a worrying trend, and I think it is not good for our country. In East Africa, we've been doing very well, and even in the rest of Africa, we've been doing very well. But now every day we are lowering our standards by reporting everything is fake, from oil, from degrees, from whatever fertilizer, seed. You saw the seed in Nakuru the other day, worth about 13 million. It was just a maize that somebody is coloring and selling and releasing to the market. So I do not know what's happening in Kenya anymore. And as I said, it is worrying me, not because of this regime. This regime will go. It may go tomorrow, it may go after 10 years, according to Professor Kindiki, but it will go. But what picture are we leaving to our children, our grandchildren? That Kenya, you don't need to do anything. And this is a product, Dibal, of the very members of parliament. I'm not saying it because I would have wished to be there. If today, even if you told me I go to parliament, that is not the parliament that I would want to discuss anything with. Because if a member of parliament admits that he's wash-wash, and in the process is elected just because he's been dishing money whose source you do not know, where have they gotten this money? Because I've been in this town, I've been doing farming for the last almost 40 years. But the kind of money you see in campaigns nowadays worries you. We used to spend possibly 1 or 2 million shillings and during the campaign. But today, if you want to run for a seat in your village, For MP, you need about 20 million.
Yeah,
Yeah, and if you want to run for governor, you need to have $1 billion. Really, if you have that money, why don't you do business and you leave us elect people who are going to represent us? You saw the president of Senegal the other day, a poor guy, elected in the league of Professor Ogola. So I can't dismiss him anymore. He may be elected in future. But when you are elected, also don't forget. Because some of these people who get to office, when they are so poor, they immediately join the bandwagon of credit train. And they end up behaving worse than those who had preceded them. Because like that young man now, the 42-year-old, 44-year-old, in the next 6 years, because I think that's a period in Senegal, he may be voted out because he will be behaving worse than the outgoing president today. So these are some of the issues that really bother me. I'm no longer bothered about Kenya Kwanza. I've realized it is fake.
Like fertilizer.
Right.
Yes, just like
Could
the
you just
fertilizer.
give me 1 minute? I put on fertilizer, just 1 minute.
No. Let's go sequentially. Yeah. Is it Professor Kindiki? I just wanted, because even when we talk about the president talking and making statements regarding the fertilizer, we have the minister making statements regarding the fertilizer. Yeah. The question would be, as they always say, too much welcome, or too much visit, where's the welcome? Do you think the president has been so much in our faces, right? Every Sunday, every other day, he's making statements that no one is taking him seriously. You mentioned the edible oils. I think the president had actually also given orders that a probe should be done on the edible oils. I think that has gone quiet. Yeah. EACC has come up with a report, and nothing has really touched about the edible oils and people who were supposed to actually be, heads to roll. We've only seen one of them, the KNTC CEO, resigning at the end of the day. So, why should we take these statements that are coming from the leaders here seriously, if no action is following some of his pronouncements?
Thank you. It is said that it's better to go slow, doing the right thing, than to go very fast, doing the wrong one. I think we are finding ourselves as a country or as a nation doing the wrong thing, doing it very fast. So I think it has come to a time we need to reflect and maybe go slow and go the right direction. Because there are so many mistakes that are being, reported here and there. You mentioned edible oil, fake fertilizer, I don't know, fake what. Many things are fake. But I think these are results of decisions that are made so fast without looking at the results. What will be the result of these decisions that are being made? And I think the Constitution of Kenya is very clear. It's not really necessary to change it so fast, but it can be changed, but not now. And I want to correct my colleague says
it can be changed, but not now. Why not now? We need action now.
It's not necessary because there are so many things that we are changing. You change the Constitution, you have not even dealt with the fake edible oil. You are not even dealing with the finance. You are not the Finance Act. All these things, you cannot have so many changes. That's why I'm saying if you go too fast, making so many changes, and what the problem is, making so many changes within a very short time, you make definitely mistakes. So it's good to go slow and do the right thing. If the Constitution, if Kenyans find it ideal to change the Constitution, so be it. But I'm saying there are so many changes that are happening, and you cannot have so many changes within a very short time, and you want them to take effect. So that's why I'm saying, for now, there are things that are pressing Kenyans more than even the Constitution itself, which are simple, and it's just going against the Constitution. For example, there is this element of public participation. It has been overlooked. And it's very clear in the Constitution that before you do anything, which you think is going to, to affect the members of the public as a leader, regardless of your status, regardless of where you are, we need to consult the public. So hear their views and what the public say about the decision we are about to take. But that one is overlooked. And very little is done. That's why a member of parliament, a whole member of parliament goes to parliament and goes in the public and the media and says, I did not read that finance, bill or act before it was signed, because it was bill, they were supposed to read, but they didn't read. Until when the president assents to it and then becomes a finance act. And now it's now being operationalized. And then you find that now other MPs like, some from central Kenya, they are now complaining. But, taking things from the face value, you don't need a lot of statistics to know that central Kenya, as maybe the highest voters, if I'm not very wrong, if I look at the Mheshimiwa will tell us here, because he's a politician. So if they have the highest number of voters, it's likely, economists are here, they can correct, it's likely also to have the highest number of business people to be affected by this Finance Act. It is likely, I'm just trying to explain, you don't need a lot of statistics to interpret that. It's likely also to be having the highest number of politicians who are not happy with the act. Maybe they are quiet. There are so many things that you can interpret looking at the central Kenya, and that's why I think that a lot of focus is given to central Kenya, because maybe of the numbers, which really affects, everybody across the board. So when you say many people are taxed, where do they come from? Where are these businesses? Where are they? The economists can tell us, where are these businesses? And who owns, for example, a lot of business in Nairobi? The other day, you find the media and the public trying to highlight. If you go to the terms of employment, then you say, oh, these people from Central, they take the highest, the biggest share of employment. These are just simple statistics because of the numbers. Then they go across the board. And I think some of the things which are said in this Finance Act, they were not looked into details. And it's really a pity for a member of parliament to say that I didn't go to nitty-gritty of the whole content of the finance bill. But actually, that's the primary role of members of parliament, to look at the nitty-gritty. So it's the opposite, saying I was too busy, I didn't read, and I passed it. And you were supposed to read and have the nitty-gritty. And if you cannot read, ask those who have read and ask them whether, they are considering some, pertinent issues that you consider as a member of parliament. Because you represent a constituency. You represent a number of people. But you see, Debar, if you look at majority of members of parliament, they go also, an accountant for during the elections. That's why there's a lot of money that is, everywhere during the campaigns. And therefore, the more money you have, there is a time you get to ride over the electioneering period, and you just be elected without even going into details of why am I being elected? What am I going to do in parliament if I'm elected? Those questions don't arise during the electioneering. It's only that who has more money, who has the best car, who has got that. Even the degrees, they can be, that's why there is this issue of fake degrees. Yeah, some people have bought degrees within a very short time. And you find somebody didn't have even a degree or whatever, a diploma, whatever is required in that position. Then all of a sudden, so and so has that qualification. And when you ask yourself, where did they get these qualifications from? But it's money changing hands. You never know. But since you have no evidence and you cannot prove it in a court of law, the lawyers will tell you the person will sail through and will become a leader. And then when we do the elections and we elect these people, then we start complaining, why are they not making some critical decisions? They cannot make critical decisions at this point because even at the grassroots, they never made any critical comment or critical decision. So why do you want it to be critical now that they're in power? So I think my suggestion going forward is that let us go slow in making some of the decisions and in the right direction rather than going very fast and making so many changes within a very short time. And this will, affect so many areas, not only what is being heard here. We don't know how much is underground that is cooking, and we do not know. Right. I think as a society, we needed to work hard towards public participation, and we consult the public before leaders make some decisions that are going to affect them.
All right. I don't know, Martin, if you've looked as well, and we can try and relate what is happening in Senegal with fire and bringing sort of a new, fresh breath of air, where there is sort of a generation exit. And I'm seeing a formation here that is happening as well with Team Ground. And you can see this Team Ground is encompassing both Azimio and the Kenya Kwanza legislators. So if we try and read with a very nuance or try and look down deeply, some of the nuances that are being thrown out right now, critically, where is that headed to? Because when it comes to 2027 and 2032, there's sort of a notion that we'll have a totally different generation exit, where it is beginning in the West. It could be also coming down to East Africa as well. Are you reading anything with the Team Ground? Let's just begin there.
Absolutely. Team Ground is operating on three assumptions, or rather there are three assumptions that inform Team Ground's operations. One, that people are dissatisfied with the Kenya Kwanza. Two, that there's a gap in opposition, particularly because there is a generation that we have now exported, or we are likely to export to Addis. Now, earlier on, when Professor was speaking, there are a number of politicians and there are a number of, there's a generation that we now need to export out of this country. And Baba is going to be one of them, so that we can clear that route, take them to Addis, they get some land.
This is
Addis.
the generation exit that is beginning.
Yes, yes. So this exit, if Baba, and not if, when Baba goes to AU, he must go with a generation, with him, and he must leave a gap here. That's why, as he goes, ODM must split into several pieces. So that we are able then to begin to reconstruct our thinking as a people. So Team Ground is saying ODM is going to go into pieces.
But just be stable, because your mic at least is crackling. Just right, yeah. So don't fidget. Okay, that's good. Yes.
So if then Team Ground is saying that ODM is going to be split into pieces, and people are going to be dissatisfied with Kenya Kwanza, then they are looking at how best to begin a narrative. And they have lessons that they learned. The Hustler narrative was precisely an anti-establishment narrative, and appealing to some hustlers, appealing to some people, and the story sold. So this country, people are hungry for a story. Let's hope that the Team Ground will create a narrative, will create a story that then people can begin to resonate with. Now, take us back to Senegal. The reason why Senegal, even despite the previous president's attempts to stick to power, the groundswell of opposition, a clear dissatisfaction of the opposition was manifest to force the elections to happen when they were due. Now, that is Senegal. And we've seen the result of that. A young man firing from all engines against France. His speech was full of France in it. What we need now to see is the test of time, whether he will continue being a firebrand against France, because France is, and the Francophone Africa generally, is about France and how France has manipulated that relationship. Is it a problem? Obviously there's a problem, but France has managed over years to ensure that it has a hold on its former colonies. Let's hope that we can see the kind of revolution against France that we saw in Rwanda with Kagame. We hope that this fire guy can do the same in now Senegal, and that we can see a new movement, an anti-French movement that can help liberate or release the Francophone countries. But back to ourselves. We don't need more changes. We don't need constitution. We don't need new laws to tell us not to bring fake fertilizer. We don't need new laws to tell the president and his team to be accountable. The constitution we have is enough. So the problem we are dealing with is not about institutions, not about the laws. It's about us as a people. We must accept that we are the problem. As Kenyans, we take bribes and we give bribes. That is where we must start. We cannot be our leaders. It is us who take bribes to vote. It's us who give bribes to have our children get grades. You know, even in the Kenya national examinations, we have parents, I hope they are not on this table, who are willing to give 50,000, 100,000 for their children to buy, or for the schools to buy for them the exams. It has happened before. It is beginning to creep back. So when we come back to ourselves, it is time that we think of how to re-engineer or resuscitate our own belief in ourselves and hope. Now, Team Ground is, again, as we've noted, across. Who is the most lethal voice in Team Ground, and who is a politician in Team Ground that has potential future? Two people to watch, and this is a man and a woman. There is Gathoni and there is Babu Owino. Babu Owino is the staff of the future of of Kenyan politics. Firing on all engines, firing in all directions, saying it as it is, disrupting the status quo. That is the new order. Gathoni is a lone voice in Central. Has been a lone voice. Now I don't think she's a lone voice. There is a groundswell of people who believe that she was right all along. And that's the future we should be looking at in our politics. And we cannot dismiss the young people. Remember that Ruto we came in the younger generation. If you look at his cabinet, apart from an octogenarian, an outsider like Machogu, generally his cabinet is younger. He's younger, inexperienced. Perhaps a good message. Now we can only keep going down, not up, in terms of looking for experience in that age. The bad news for my good friend Mheshimiwa Kirwa is that his time is up. If he tries to go down there, he'll find that he cannot make sense. Most of the people, what they are saying and what he knows are not. So yes, there is a bigger group of people coming up who are taking over the spaces. And for people like Mheshimiwa Kirwa here, I think when Baba goes to AU, we must look for a slot for him there, so that that's where his group are going to be for the next foreseeable future.
You get a rebuttal? No. Allow me to take a short break. When you come back, we come back with you. You have a rebuttal on that as well? Yeah. You cannot just be dismissed like that, right? Because also, yeah, it depends. You still have the intellectual vigor, right? We can still have the young faces, and still they don't give the output that is needed as well. We take a short break. You're watching Uongozi today. When we circle back, of course, we continue with the conversation. Also, have a conversation about Easter as well, regarding the crucifixion of Jesus. What is illegal, right? Did he get an unfair trial from the Son Henry and the Roman Empire? We look at that. Don't go away.